Hello and welcome to this review of Redemption High Rye Bourbon. I bought this at Matherns. It was $23.99 plus tax. It was on sale. They just got it in. I'll tell you the story about this in my experience. I was talking to Tanya Makowski. She does beer reviews and other things, but mainly beer reviews like me. And she was saying, we ought to review Redemption Rye. And I said, she said, I like bourbon. And I said, well, I never heard of that. And I checked their website. And I said, Tanya, that's not sold in Louisiana. Literally, like 5 days later or less, it shows up at Matherns. The Redemption Rye, the Redemption Bourbon, and the Redemption High Rye Bourbon. I went over there this morning, and the bourbon was gone. All they had was the rye, or maybe they had the bourbon in this. I can't remember, but I said I'll get the high rye because she said something about bourbon and then rye. Okay, so the Redemption Rye is a rye whiskey. It's not a bourbon. Then the bourbon is a bourbon, and then this is a high rye bourbon. Now it doesn't say straight bourbon, which is interesting. I was watching, and there's a lot of video reviews, and I was watching the first one that I had put on my watch later list. And the guy was saying it's strange that they're saying on the bottle, and he had the old bottle from a few years ago, this cylindrical bottle, and he said, see, it's got a wood cap with the cork. He says it's strange because they're saying it's straight, but the website says it's aged 1 year, at least 1 year. He says, I know straight bourbon has to be 2 years. So he said, like somebody's going to have to make a correction. It must be a mistake. And then he did say that the whiskey was delicious. Now, I don't know anything else about his review. I do know that this came out in 2010. Okay? 2010. Well, that's when the trademark was secured. It might have been 2011, but it was a partnership, K&S, that came out with this, and then about 2 years ago it was bought out by a company called Dutch Family Wine and Spirits of Connecticut. All of their whiskey is distilled at Midwest Grain Products, a distillery started in 1847, became the famous Seagram's distillery, and then after Seagram's went defunct in 2000, now it has been acquired by Midwest Grain Products, who produces a lot of the major whiskeys in the world, like for instance Bulleit. Now I noticed since the buyout they changed the bottles to this, more of a Bulleit style. Now it says pre-prohibition. Everything you know now is pre-prohibition. It's got like a label that's supposed to look leather, I guess like a leather patch. It's bringing back, Redemption is bringing back rye to its pre-prohibition glory. Our high rye bourbon whiskey is made with corn. Has to be made with at least 51% corn to be with bourbon, and a high content of rye. So they're given the percentage, 60% corn, 30% rye, and 4% barley, aged in new charred oak barrels. 92 proof, batch number 112. And then there's pretty embossed section down here with the barley, or is that rye? I don't know. What do I know for green pictures? The 287th day of 2016. Okay, so it was made last year at 2:46 p.m. And maybe that's when it was bottled, because it's saying 2:40 of 2016 and 11:46. So maybe that's when it was finally distilled. Okay, so they distill it in Indiana, then they cross the bridge, bring it over into Kentucky down to Bardstown, and they age it and bottle it. And more than likely it's being aged and bottled at either Heaven Hill or Barton. That's your two big companies down there that do that stuff for people. They rent their facilities out for that purpose. So really, in a way, this is a company that's more of a brand holder than an actual distiller, much like Pabst, although I know Pabst Brewing has reopened a brewery, a little pilot brewery or boutique brewery in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Okay, but the funny thing, it's only aged 1 year. It says at least 1 year. So that would probably mean what? No more than one, I guess. Aged no less than 1 year, bourbon whiskey. Now it doesn't say straight bourbon, it just says bourbon. And I got so curious. I looked on the Tax and Trade Bureau website. Now you got to look at the fine points. It says all the different classifications. It says straight bourbon, aged at least 2 years in new charred oak barrels. Well, that's to be a straight bourbon. Then they have blended bourbon, which can be a mixture of grain neutral spirits, but it has to be at least 51% straight bourbon. But then, right, straight bourbon would be aged at least 2 years. So I don't know, I didn't see a classification on their website, the government's website, for just bourbon. They had all these different areas, but not bourbon. So I don't know, maybe I'm gonna watch the other videos and see what those guys say about it. So this is sort of an anomaly bourbon. It's gold, look at that, amber, light amber, nice alcohol legs, but not heavy. It seems light in the glass, doesn't it look light? Rye, I like rye. I like the Sazerac rye. Hey, that was about the same price, $23. Okay, so Tanya and I are gonna do an examination of one of them. I don't know which one she's gonna get. We'll see. There was some beeswax, some beeswax and honeycomb. Okay, and it looks like the shade of honeycomb cereal. I'm joking, but actually it does kind of have some of those characteristics. Now they're saying they don't use wheat, which is what many other bourbons use. Just corn mainly, a lot of rye, and a little bit of barley. And Midwest Grain Products, Taylor makes, well, actually they bulk make a whole lot of stuff. Gin, vodka, bourbon, etc., other spirits. And then companies like this, or like Diageo with Bullet, they can make an order. Like, okay, they go through this huge list, this portfolio. They say, we want that or that. Different ages and everything, different recipe mixes. Okay, we'll ship that. And like Nikki said in Casino, they do it to a T. You know what I mean? They carry out the instructions to a T. And that's why I get all this business from everybody, including Sazerac, who gets all their vodka from them. And their gin. You know, their base whiskey, their base grain neutral spirits to make the gin and vodka. Or to age it and mix and blend their gin and vodka. Okay. It's a little spicy in the nose. It ought to be its rye, high rye. Now there's a 10-year age also. That did not come into Mathern's. This specialized 10-year age. And I got a feeling there was no way that was going to be $23.99. It's very mellow though. It's so mild. It's so mild. It reminds me of blended whiskey. Like Carstairs. Now, and that makes sense because Carstairs is coming from Sazerac. And what does Sazerac like to do? They like to rye up everything. They get ryed up, not riled up, ryed up. I think I could fool myself thinking this was Carstairs. Well, now, you know, Carstairs is about $8 a bottle. Yeah. And it's aged at least 3 years. Okay, let's go with the taste. Talking about Carstairs White Seal. Yeah. There's wood for sure. I don't know if there's more rye than wood. Rye spice than wood. There's a lot of wood. There's a good amount of rye spice. There's mint. You know, like mint. You know what I mean? Mint. But sweet caramel type thing. It's sharp. Like I do a lot of bourbon whiskey reviews and taste challenges. And they're sweet caramel, but they're not as sharp as this one. This has like a sharp cut to it. Sharp drop. Yeah, the taste doesn't linger too much. It's like a sharp, and it doesn't cut like that. It cuts like that. It's hard to describe, but yeah, it's like medium bodied, and like I said, that quick cut finish. But there's an underlying rye spice linger, but the whiskey itself cuts off. Yeah, well, I think this is a winner. Like I say, it's a bit of an anomaly. It's a peculiar item. Glad it showed up suddenly last week because I could do the examination with Tanya and I could try it. Wasn't planning to go buy any more spirits, let me assure you. I told her that. I said I wasn't planning to buy anything else with this enormous backstock. I said, but I'll do it for you. So I'm doing it for you, Tanya. I'm doing this for you, $23.99 out of my gift card. It's Jerry over there working. He would love this. It is smooth, you know. He loves smooth stuff. It's kind of like an IPA in the sense that at first the hops aren't like you'll say 70 IBU. It doesn't seem that way. And then if you sip on it, it starts to set in. Then you can feel that hop bitterness. It starts to build. And it's doing that here. It's setting in. The rye is setting in. I think my friend Sonia, she would hate it because I don't think she likes rye. But, you know, it's very minty in a way. Very spearmint. Not peppermint, though. It's weird, huh? Spearmint. Yeah, I think it's worth $23.99. I would agree with that. So I wouldn't pay more than that. Maybe $25. But $23.99 seems really fair. So I would highly recommend it. So if you ever see Redemption Rye with its curiously similar bottle design, and you want a bourbon that's aged no less than 1 year. And I wanted to joke about Indiana, you know, like people roll their eyes like, Indiana? It is actually a famous whiskey state, just like Illinois, Peoria, Illinois, and some other areas of Illinois, and even Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Those are historic old, and Baltimore, Maryland too, old whiskey producing areas that just don't get the attention. People don't know about majestic spirits in Baltimore and stuff like that. So anyway, oh yeah, and I think, just to mention that, I think Majestic, which got bought out by Sazerac, I think they were one of the people that kind of kept rye whiskey going. I read some article about that. They were like one of the few in the early 70s that kept it going, and there was something famous about some Maryland rye whiskey that they did. And it was like, if they hadn't kept the legacy going, it might have all died out or something like that. Anyway, enough of that. Thanks for watching this video production.